If I gave you 10 clients today, how many are going to stay with you for the rest of the month? You see, I was doing a sales process audit for one of my clients, everything to do from traffic to sales to closing to delivery of the work. And then when we got to the onboarding and the delivery, something just didn't add up. Essentially, they were having churn rates for customers north of 40%. So every second customer, almost every second customer that they got, they lost after a month. So we realized something's really broken. So this is the behind the scenes recording of what we did and what we uncovered. So I hope you can find it beneficial. So we asked all sorts of questions like, where are your traffic sources? Are they organic? Are they ads? And things like that. Okay. So that's the traffic component. A lot of CEOs and I suppose people or agencies focus a lot on the traffic, and then their next priority is they look at sales. Okay. So this is where obviously we look at your close rate, your setting rates, your close rates, and all sorts of things like that. But the crux of the issue that we started uncovering is when we started looking at the onboarding, and then after that the fulfillment. This is where we started to find some interesting gems. Now, to be honest, the only way I knew about the onboarding issues is when I realized there were clients dropping off during the fulfillment. And again, after probing a lot of questions, we realized that we were losing 30% of our clients. Okay, so if you're losing 30% of your clients, if you collect, again as an example, if we collect $20,000 or we get $20,000 worth of sales a month, right? Assuming, say, it's 10 clients, 2K a month, okay? You're only keeping, by the end of the month, if you have a 30% churn rate, you're only keeping 14K. You're losing that $6,000 each month with 30% churn rate. And this is what uncovered a lot of things. So we started looking at the fulfillment and asking all sorts of questions, why we're receiving some bad feedback, or why the clients are dropping off. And the way for you to uncover that is obviously there's telltale signs when you start to look at things like that. When the telltale signs is obviously you lost a client, right? But then you start having recurring themes, is that you lost a couple of clients and they both said the same things. They had issues with expectations. Okay. Now, it is very important for you to start, again, listen to your clients. And I always recommend to have a offboarding interview with your clients, if you can, if you have left on good terms. If you've left on bad terms, they probably don't want to talk to you at all. So try to get a brain dump from your account managers, if you have any. Try to get a brain dump from the people who are interacting with your customers or your clients, to understand why are they running away? What transformation were they expecting? And this is where you start to uncover some real good gems. Now, for example, and the best example, I suppose, is if you can speak to the clients themselves, right? Speak to client. If you can speak to the client themselves, then you start to understand the lingo and the language and the expectations, also things like that they had in their mind that you didn't fulfill whatsoever. So once you grab all that information, I recommend have listed out, like client 1. What were the issues? Client 2. Client 3, right? And if you have enough data, then you add them all in one document, and literally that's where we use AI to analyze. We start to use AI to analyze certain trends if you haven't picked up on in the first place, and then you start to have some action items to address your fulfillment. So, and I'll tell you, a lot of times when it comes to fulfillment issues, the issue starts here. It doesn't start here. What do I mean? So your sales team might be over ambitions and they over promise. So if you are selling, for example, advertising, and they'll sell them the world, right? They'll say, you know what, you can get leads for $10. Yeah. Knowing for a fact that yes, you might have, the sales team thinks that your fulfillment team are so awesome that they can get $10 leads, but $10 leads might be in month 4, right? Not month 1. So how fast can you get them that $10 lead? They're expecting, so there's issues with expectations, right? So there's issues with expectations. So that's some of the issues, right? So there's a lot of areas that we can sort of uncover client frustrations and that. The other aspect that you can have a look at is what happens when they onboard. So after the sales person, you know, signs them up, what happens on, you know, hour 1, the first hour, right? The first hour. What happened on the first day? What happens in the first week? All right. Are there regular checkups? Now, I will tell you from one of the bad experiences that I've experienced with one of the agencies is that the promise was okay, and I think they were a little bit too ambitious. I was skeptical from the start. The onboarding for me was painful. What do I mean? They sent me a very, very long Google Doc form, right? Google Doc. And what happened is that they asked all sorts of questions. They asked like 20, 30 questions, right? I would have loved for them to ask me that over the phone call as opposed to me starting to type it out. But that's fine. That's not an issue. The issue with that Google Doc, it needed a lot of information that I didn't have and no one is expected to have straight away. What's your revenue numbers last month and the month before? What are the metrics? Blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't even save this Google Doc at all. I couldn't save it. It was, actually it wasn't a Google Doc, sorry. It was a Google form. And I couldn't save that form. I couldn't save my progress. So I had to do it. I did it once and I spent probably half an hour to 45 minutes realizing I can't get all that information. So I lost all that information. So I had to start again, and it was very long and tedious. Mind you, the salesperson could have fed that information in their pipeline, and they could have easily provided, you know, 3/4 of that. Hey, our sales team has told us that you had these targets and so on and so forth. You had these issues. We've already pre-filled out this form. Can you please answer the rest of the 3 to 5 questions, right? But not 20 to 30 questions that I've already talked to the setter and I've already spoken to the closer, and now I'm having to repeat myself again. So anyway, the aim of this discussion is to highlight sometimes there's a lot of focus from CEOs and founders and owners on traffic, on sales, but there's little attention paid on onboarding and fulfillment. Sometimes it's like, hey, onboarding works, who cares? Let's not optimize it. And you could win or lose a lot of clients from day 0. And then after that, obviously with the fulfillment, all sorts of issues. So my advice to you is map out your entire sales flow, look at where your issues are happening, and this will essentially create a task list for you to start to tackle, you know, in a sense of priority. Now, certain things might be very critical for you to action straight away, and certain things you can wait on. So that's it. That's all for today. And yeah, go for it and start to map out your entire process, audit for your sales flow, and see what the issues are. Thank you very much.